Hello and welcome to episode number 54 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. My name is esports and gaming insider Jason Finelli, and it has been a calm week for the month of June, all things considered. There's things that have happened, there's things to note, but it hasn't been quite as crazy as previous weeks have, thanks to E3 and things of the like. A calm week across video games, but they're about to pick up again right now. We got some big esports things happening over the weekend. The return of the Overwatch League, which we'll get into a little bit. And then this is my last show for a week. I'm not going to record episode 55 until 2 weeks from now. I go on a slight vacation next week, so there will be a show. There will be something on the radio at 4 o'clock, but it'll be more of a best of thing, and then we're back with episode 55 the week after. But enough about worrying about the future. Let's get into the present and get right into the 6 in 60 seconds. The Overwatch League Summer Showdown begins this week. The Fusion are off for week 1, but back in week 2 versus the Guangzhou Charge and the Shanghai Dragons. The Call of Duty League's Major 4 final was held in Texas with all teams live in person, the first LAN tournament for Call of Duty League in 2021, with Atlanta FaZe winning their third major of the season. Meanwhile, Dota 2's annual The International Tournament is looking for a new home after Swedish authorities deny special classification for it to take place in Stockholm as scheduled. Elsewhere, Sonic the Hedgehog celebrates its 30th birthday this past Wednesday with a symphony orchestra concert stream on YouTube. Cyberpunk 2077 returns to the PlayStation Store, with Sony offering a warning about the PlayStation 4 version. And finally, Microsoft has revealed Windows 11's operating system today after leaks show a start menu user interface in the past week. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. And as always, the 6 in 60 seconds are brought to you tonight by our sponsor, Ghost Shaver. The Ghost Shaver is a shave above the rest, designed to feel like it's an extension of your arm, allowing users to reach anywhere on the head, face, or body. The precision cutting system gives you a close and smooth shave every single time, thanks to 5 different rotary flex action super thin blades and a patented handheld design that fits into the palm of your hand precisely. Go to ghostshaver.com to check it out and get yours. That's Ghost Shaver, a shave above the rest. Yes, folks, we are kicking things off big on episode 54 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers with the Overwatch League. That's right, Overwatch is back for the Summer Showdown. 3 weeks of qualifying competition leading up to the third tournament of the season. And frankly, I have a very low bar for the Summer Showdown. My bar is pretty simple. I don't want Dallas versus Shanghai in the finals. We've had them in the finals of the May Melee. We've had them in the finals of the June Joust. I don't want to see them again. So, who is going to fulfill my dreams and make that happen? Well, I don't really know. Ann's coming back to the San Francisco Shock is a big boost for them, while Funny Astro and Shockwave coming back to the Fusion is a big boost for them. So there are a couple of interesting little foibles going into this week's competition. Some teams we won't see until next week, but there's definitely some awesome Overwatch League to pay attention to in this first week of the Summer Showdown. And as always, I'm going to run down my picks for the week and see how I do in the first week of the Summer Showdown. Now, the Fusion are off, so I can't really speak to what the Fusion are going to do. I will save that for a future installment. I do know that I am off next week. I did just say that. So week 2 of the Fusion's matches, I will not be able to call, but hopefully in week 3, I'm talking about 2 wins against Guangzhou and Shanghai, and not 2 losses. I will also take 1 win and 1 loss, just to keep it realistic. So, Getting into week one of the Summer Showdown, Friday, June 25th. So Friday, a couple hours from now, if you're listening to this when the podcast went live, or if you're listening to it on the radio, you missed this match. We have Paris and London. I still have no faith in London, despite their best efforts. I just do not feel that they are a very good team, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I think the Paris... The Paris Eternal beat them rather handily in this first matchup. Then we get into our second matchup of the week, Friday at 4:30, LA Gladiators at San Francisco Shock, a giant grudge match between two West Coast teams and two teams that I think really are going to give it their all. I do think that Ans is going to be the difference maker and that the San Francisco Shock are going to beat them, but I do think it's going to be close, and I do think it's going to be tight. So that's definitely a match worth watching. Saturday morning, early, 5 a.m., we have the Hangzhou Spark and the LA Valiant. My opinion has not changed about the said LA Valiant. They have yet to win a single match this year and have only won 2 maps out of 27 played in this Overwatch League season. I do not see their fortunes changing. Give me the Hangzhou Spark in that match. And then we have the Seoul Dynasty taking on the Chengdu Hunters, an interesting matchup in the upper half of the eastern region. Chengdu coming off a 2-2 tournament in the June Joust with a map record of 16-14-1 throughout the entire season. Seoul performing a little bit better at 6-2 for the year. I believe they went 4 or I think 2-3-1s. I think is what it's been so far. And I think Seoul takes care of Chengdu here. Chengdu's first tournament was amazing. And then ever since then, they have just fallen off a cliff. And I do not see them righting the ship in this match against Seoul. And then 8 a.m. Saturday morning, we have Guangzhou against New York. This is actually the match that you can catch on the replay at 12:30 p.m. Philadelphia time. And I think New York wins here after their huge showing in the June Joust, really coming out strong and just making it into the qualifiers in 4th place. Despite their 3-5 season record and their 11-17 map record, I do think they're just better than Guangzhou. So I think New York takes the win here. Saturday, we're looking at London and San Francisco, and I don't even need to get into you why San Francisco is going to beat London. London just not impressing me at all. 0-8 on the season. They've won 4 maps total, 4-24. The only team they're better than is the LA Valiant. I don't see that changing here against the San Francisco Shock, so give that to San Fran as well. Florida and Toronto. Now, this is interesting. These are two teams in the upper echelon of the Western region. I would rank Florida slightly better than Toronto, but not by much. Toronto are coming off a very disappointing June Joust, whereas the Florida Mayhem are right in the pack of things. I think I am going to give the slight edge to the Florida Mayhem because there are no hero pools in the Summer Showdown, so everyone can play at full strength, and I think that's going to bode well for the Florida Mayhem going back to their May Melee performance 2 tournaments ago. Next up, we have Vancouver versus Boston, 2 teams in the lower half of the league. I think this is going to be a battle of attrition, and I do think that Boston is going to win this in one of those matches that you watch because it's the only one on. I hate to say that for Saturday night at 6 o'clock p.m., but they're just two bottom half teams right now, really struggling to find their own. And but Boston is just slightly better, so I'm going to take them in this match. Sunday morning, 5 a.m., we're looking at Hangzhou and Seoul, and I think Seoul takes this one away as well. I think Seoul's better, one of the better teams in the Eastern region, just overshadowed by Shanghai. And I think this Summer Showdown is a good opportunity for them to come out of that shadow a little bit. So I take Seoul over Hangzhou Sunday morning. Next, we have Chengdu and Guangzhou, which is another match that's really hard to call because they're both middling, if not lower half of the pack. But I do think Chengdu is a little bit better than Guangzhou, and I do see them pulling it out. But that's a coin flip. That one could really go either way, if you ask me. Guangzhou could surprise Chengdu, and I wouldn't be shocked at all. So if you find a way to bet on these matches, maybe that's one that you avoid in this week 1. Then the final match of the Eastern region, Sunday at 8 a.m., we have the New York Excelsior taking on the LA Valiant. And as I've said before, and I will say again, the LA Valiant are the worst team in the league. They've only won 2 maps the entire year, and I don't think that any of their fortunes are going to change against the New York Excelsior. Maybe they take a map. Maybe they get really lucky and take 2. But I just don't see it happening, and New York is going to push ahead of LA Valiant in that Eastern region matchup. And then the final 3 matches of the weekend. First, we have the LA Gladiators taking on the Paris Eternal. This is actually a really tough one to call. Both teams have been streaky. Both teams have really been either the gangbusters, the best team to ever play Overwatch, or really struggling and falling behind. But I think LA Gladiators are going to be a slightly hungrier, looking for a win after losing to San Francisco, and they're going to take it over Paris here. But that's another coin flip. I could be wrong, completely wrong in that regard as well. But I do think LA takes it over Paris there. Florida over Boston in the next matchup. I just don't see Boston beating Florida, especially with that lack of hero pools. I think Florida's a much stronger team when they can use the heroes they want to use, and I think that's going to bode well for them in that Boston matchup. And then the final matchup of the week, Sunday at 6 p.m. Philadelphia time. 2 Canadian teams take out each other when Toronto faces Vancouver. With Vancouver in the basement of the Overwatch League, another team that's only won 4 maps all year, en route to an 0-8 record. And Toronto are going to be reeling from not only a disappointing June joust, but a first match of the week, losing to the Florida Mayhem, if my predictions are correct. I think they come back strong here, make it 1-1 for the first weekends of qualifiers, and take out Vancouver in this matchup. So, if we are talking about what matches to look for in week 1, my picks for week 1, we're going to say Paris over London, San Francisco over LA on Friday. On Saturday, we're going to take Hangzhou over the LA Valiant. We're going to take Seoul over the Chengdu Hunters, and we're going to take the New York Excelsior over the Guangzhou Charge. Saturday afternoon, we're going to take San Francisco over London. We're going to take Florida over Toronto, and we're going to take Boston over Vancouver. Sunday morning, we're going to take Seoul over Hangzhou and Chengdu over Guangzhou, and New York over LA. There are 3 Eastern matches on Sunday. And then finally, in the Sunday afternoon matches, I have LA over Paris, Florida over Boston, and Toronto over Vancouver. That is week 1 of the Summer Showdown. My picks right there for you. I do think that in week 2, the Philadelphia Fusion have some tough matches going up against the Guangzhou Charge, which is not as bad, but then Shanghai Dragons on the 4th of July at 6:30 in the morning. 2 straight finals for the Shanghai Dragons, a win in the last tournament, and I do believe that it's their second match of the Summer Showdown qualifiers. So we don't know what they're going to look like with no hero pools. The Fusion will be at their strongest with no hero pools, taking away any heroes. You'll have the Tracer for Rascal. You'll have the Reinhardt for Mono. You'll have the players that you need, but I don't know. It's going to be a tough call. That's a match I'm definitely going to have circled, especially since it's also the encore on the 4th of July. We can watch it again at 12:30 if we don't make the 6:30. That's a tough one. I think they can take Guangzhou. I think they'll go into the match 1-0, but after that, it remains to be seen. Shanghai is just really good. Fleta and Void are 2 very good teams. One's the reigning MVP, and it's hard to count them out in any match that they are in. So there's your Summer Showdown week 1 with a slight touch of Fusion in week 2 for you. Looking forward to some great Summer Showdown action. If you recall the Summer Showdown tournament last year, the finals was Paris versus Philadelphia in one of the best Overwatch matches I have ever watched. And I'm hoping that luck replicates itself and we see the Fusion going deep into the Summer Showdown tournament once again. All right, before we kick off on our second topic of the night, there are a couple of games worth talking about. I haven't done an on-tap section in quite some time because we were talking about all the games that were being announced. Now it's time to talk about some games that are coming out. Get out those glasses, dust them off, clean them up, whatever you got to do. Hope you're thirsty. It's time for What's on Tap. Mario Golf Super Rush is first on the menu, coming out today, Friday, for the Nintendo Switch. Some insane arcade golf action starring Mario and his pals. Certainly one that I have been looking forward to for quite a little bit. We also have Scarlet Nexus, a action RPG game from Bandai Namco, which has very much impressed critics. I was surprised to see the reception that it's gotten leading up to its release. Very, very cool stuff there. We have two big-time Switch ports coming this week in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 and Destroy All Humans from THQ Nordic. Two big games for the Switch there. A third one, Disgaea 6 Defiance of Destiny, finally comes to the West. Disgaea 6, Disgaea, a major strategy RPG franchise, and the sixth one is going to continue that legacy. I know a couple people who are very excited for it. And then finally, on the 30th, we have Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, which on its surface looks like a very Japanese, very anime dating simulator, but that descriptor tag, psychological horror, is called that for a reason, and that's all I'll say about that. So check that game out if you have not played it before. We have a scary game, we have Mario Golf, we have action, and we have some Switch games for you to choose from. What is on tap for you? Yep, there they are. 6 big-time games to play this week as they release. I am targeting Mario Golf Super Rush, I think. That game looks very, very cool. I'm a sucker for the Mario Golf games. Have been since Toadstool Tour and the GameCube. And I think that the new things that they're adding here will keep my interest. I hear there's only 6 courses at launch, which is a bit disappointing. But they're adding free DLC through updates throughout the entire year per the Nintendo Direct at E3. So I don't think that my anguish over how little golf there is to play will last very long. But also going to keep an eye on Scarlet Nexus. Hope that hits Game Pass at some point, and I'll try it there. I'm hearing it has Astral Chain vibes, and I loved Astral Chain. So those comparisons can stick around all they want. But now we're getting into our second segment of the evening, and would you believe it? I talked about it in 6 and 60 seconds, but it still blows my mind just to think of it, just to consider it. Sonic the Hedgehog is 30 years old. Blows my mind that game came out June 23rd, 1991 for the first time. And I remember seeing it for the first time and it blowing me away. I was a guy who was very, very much Nintendo, Mario, had Super Nintendo, was not a Genesis guy. I believe we got one for free or something. My grandpa got one for free, and that's how the Genesis came to my house. And then I was blown away by the Sonic games. I still have very, very fond memories of Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 for that matter, and all those games. Just loved every second of them. So to hear that the guy is 30 years old is just silly. So I'm going to run down, like I like to do during anniversaries, I'm going to run down the list of major Sonic the Hedgehog titles, starting with that first one in 1991 and going into where we are today. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm not going to really dig into what makes these games, a lot of these games, so good, but I will stop to highlight a lot of them that really put an indelible mark on me as a gamer growing up. And that first one is Sonic the Hedgehog. Genesis, 1991, blazed out of the gate, no pun intended. The speedy hedgehog just blew us away with its fast-paced platforming and multiple paths through each level and bonuses where you could collect emeralds and get even stronger. The bad guy, Dr. Robotnik, which is what he was called at the time. We'll get into Dr. Eggman when we get there. I thought this game was an absolute joy when I first played it as a kid. I still think it now. I like firing up the Genesis Mini that I have at my feet and playing some Sonic every once in a while. I love doing that. This is a game that I will never get tired of, and I look forward to showing my kids eventually the magic of Sonic the Hedgehog from the early 90s. We then had the Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Game Gear, which was a little bit different. It did have a bit of a different storyline. It wasn't quite the same because the Game Gear couldn't handle the Sega Genesis games. It was a little bit different, not quite the same feel to it, especially also with Sonic the Hedgehog 2 the next year. The Game Gear version was that actually owned that on the Game Gear. I had a Game Gear back in the day. And Sonic 2 was it was different. It wasn't quite what I wanted. It was a little more janky. It wasn't quite as fun. But it was fine. It served the purpose, but it wasn't quite as good as the Genesis version of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which introduced Miles Tails Prower. His name is Miles Prower. Get it? His nickname is Tails because he flies with his two tails attached to his backside. And he is also a pilot of a plane. Why he needs to pilot a plane when he can actually fly doesn't really make much sense to me. But some of the zones in Sonic Hedgehog 2 are some of my favorite in all of the franchise. The Chemical Plant Zone, that song, which I would guess you're listening to right now as you listen to me talk to this, is just an absolute gem. Everything about the game is great. And then being able to play it with Knuckles later on with the Sonic 2 and Knuckles connection was a trip as well. But Sonic 2 is an absolute classic, one of the best Genesis games out there, and one that if you have not played, I highly, highly recommend it. Sonic CD is next, and I don't really know a whole lot about Sonic CD because I did not have a Sega CD back in the day. I do know that it was the first game to introduce Metal Sonic and also Amy Rose, who was the female hedgehog that became part of the story. Other than that, I don't know a whole lot about it, so I'm just going to skip past it here if you don't mind. Sonic Chaos was the third Sonic game on the Game Gear. Again, a original story. It had its own feel to it. It was pretty cool, but not really worth writing home about. Then we have two offshoot games in Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is basically a Tetris-style game using circular little beans to match 3 or 4 of the colors and get rid of the lines and basically play Tetris. Fun little game, but definitely a deviation from the normal Sonic formula, as was Sonic Spinball. Now, this game holds a very special place in my heart. I owned this. I owned Sonic Spinball for that Genesis that I got as a gift, and I thought it was one of the craziest games I have ever played. Using Sonic as a pinball and a giant pinball machine and attacking enemies just by hitting him around like he's a pinball. What a weird concept. Right up there with Mega Man Soccer as one of the weirdest concepts I ever remember playing, but still a very cool game it was. And it gets devilishly difficult towards the end. One of the most difficult games I've ever played, actually, was Sonic Spinball. So if you ever pick that up, be ready for that. The game gets tough as heck. And then Sonic 3. Now we're in the classics here. Now we're in the all-timers. Sonic 3 tripled the amount of zones or something crazy like that. Added the story with Knuckles, bringing him in, and the giant emeralds, giant Chaos emeralds that the island used as like a power source or something like that. Just it was the perfection of 16-bit Sonic, if you ask me. This was the peak, especially when you connected it with Knuckles the next year when Sonic and Knuckles came out. When you connected those two games and made one giant adventure, oh man, one of the best experiences in retro video games you will ever have, and one that I highly recommend you go back and take a look at. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a classic, without any question. We then have Sonic Drift on the Game Gear, which, Sonic racing game. They weren't in cars yet, but they were running, I believe, in a path. I knew a little bit about that, but not much. Then we have a couple of little releases before Sonic and Knuckles in 1994. The two of them together are considered the full third entry. So when you lock them together, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is when you get the full story of Sonic 3. But like I said earlier, you could also put Sonic the Hedgehog 2 into the top of the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge and play Knuckles in Sonic 2 the entire time, which is a very cool game. But Sonic and Knuckles also right up there with Sonic 3, just excellent stuff. And playing the full story from front to back with Sonic 3 and Knuckles is awesome. It's a good use of an hour and a half if you ever have it. You just want to power right through it. Definitely recommend you do that. We get another couple Game Gear games, Sonic Drift 2, Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble. Then we have the 32X game, Knuckles Chaotix, which starred some extra characters like Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon. Just got really, really weird. This is where the Sonic franchise started to get a little crazy, and Knuckles Chaotix just didn't really appeal to many people. We still have Game Gear games coming out. Tails Sky Patrol, which was Tails by himself using his plane, his flight capabilities to offer unique gameplay. Tails Adventure, which was a solo adventure with RPG elements for Tails. Sonic Labyrinth, which was like an isometric sort of 3D game for the Game Gear. Sonic the Fighters, which was a 3D arcade fighting game where you fought with characters from the Sonic franchise, kind of fought like Virtua Fighter. Interesting choice there was Sonic the Fighters. Decent fighting game, but just a weird choice. And then he would show up in Fighters Megamix a couple years later as his character from Sonic the Fighters. Just weird. Or there were Sonic Fighters. It wasn't Sonic himself. Just a weird game. Weird choice. Sonic 3D Blast, which is a really, really interesting take on Sonic when it came out for the Genesis and the Sega Saturn in 96. This one played more like an isometric style game, like a Diablo or something like that. Didn't have the RPG elements. You were still platforming and jumping on enemies, but the isometric view instead of the side view was definitely pretty cool. And everything was in like full 3D graphics, so that was a big selling point for the game, that it looked so good. Cool game, but not one that you need to really rush out and go after. Sonic Blast on the Game Gear, I believe, was the last Game Gear Sonic game before they discontinued it. Sonic R was a 3D racing game where they're running. That's the one I'm thinking of, where they're actually running down the tracks. They're not driving anything. And then Sonic turned a corner in 1998 with Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast. This was the first big-time Sonic 3D adventure game with a lot of fast-paced action and all kinds of crazy stuff. I loved it. That's a great game. And Sonic Adventure 2, which we'll get into, was even better by introducing the Chows and all that other stuff. Shadow the Hedgehog makes his debut in the second game, which I guess I'll just skip to now because that's really the next notable one, is Sonic Adventure 2. Awesome game. The Dreamcast was so ahead of its time as a console. That's a whole other topic for a whole other night. But Sonic Adventure 2 is just an absolute gem of a game, a perfect example of everything that made that console great. The fast-paced 3D action, the side missions with the Chows, like I said, introduced grinding, like skateboard or grinding with your feet, which made you go faster. Just a cool game. But then we didn't see any on console for a little while. We saw a bunch of Game Boy Advance games. Sonic Advance 1, 2, Pinball Party, and Sonic Battle. Sonic Advance being the first game from the Sonic series to be released on a Nintendo console. This happened because they stopped making the Dreamcast. They decided they were going to get out of the console business and just go with software, which I think ended up saving them because they're still around now. If they stuck with trying to make consoles, I don't think they would exist anymore. So it was a savvy move by them. So then we have, Sonic Advance, Sonic Advance 2, Sonic Pinball Party, and Sonic Battle. And then we're into Sonic Heroes, which is where the 3D approach started to get a little experimental, where you had it continued the story of Sonic Adventure 2, brought back Shadow the Hedgehog, and then you could play as teams of 3, so Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, there was Team Chaotix, there was all kinds of stuff. So that was an interesting little game. Didn't quite get to Sonic Adventure 2, but it was good. It was definitely decent. Sonic Advance 3, Sega Superstars, which was for the PS2's iToy, which nobody, really took advantage of. Shadow the Hedgehog, which I'm just not going to talk about because that's not a game that we like to mention. Just a weird approach, a weird game. Not a fan of that. Sonic Rush was his first DS appearance, also introducing Blaze the Cat. Sonic X for the Leapster. Believe it or not, there were games coming out for the Leapster. Sonic Riders was a hoverboard, skateboard, surfboard sort of racing game that introduced all these different characters and antagonists, like Jet the Hawk, that green bird you probably remember seeing on the cover. Just not a decent game, but not Sonic. Not the kind of game you want from a Sonic game. And then we get to what I would call the lowest point in Sonic the Hedgehog's history. And that is the 2006 Sonic the Hedgehog game for 360 and PS3. I honestly have no idea what they were thinking. I really don't. I have no idea what they were going for in this game. It's a mess. The story is weird. Sonic's out here kissing human women, which is just odd, or I guess getting kissed by human women. It's just a weird weird title that I don't want to spend too much time on because it just makes me sad. We then get to PSP, Sonic Rivals. It's a side-scrolling racing game, which is a weird little foible, but turned out pretty good. Sonic and the Secret Rings. Sonic went through a phase where he had a bunch of exclusive Wii titles. Secret Rings took him to the world of Arabian Nights, which is an interesting crossover, but a decent game. Nothing to really write home about, but they were okay. Sonic Rush Adventure was a sequel to Sonic Rush on the DS. Then the first ever crossover between Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. A hugely popular title featuring both Mario characters and Sonic characters doing Olympic Games. So it's got basically a sports feel to it, even though it's Mario and Sonic characters. Still selling those today. I believe the Tokyo 2021 just came out not too long ago, actually. So that's really, really cool. And it started on the Wii back in 2007. Great stuff. Really great stuff. We saw Sonic Rivals 2 on the PSP in 2007. We saw a follow-up to Sonic Riders called Zero Gravity, which, again, a weird racing style to it. Sonic then made his guest appearance in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the first of 3 appearances in Super Smash Bros. For Sonic. We then had more Sonic at the Olympic Games. We had Sega Superstars Tennis, Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood, which is a turn-based RPG by BioWare on the DS. A lot of weird names coming together to make that one, but definitely cool stuff. Sonic Unleashed, where he could change into a werehog or a werewolf hedgehog. Weird stuff. You can kind of see a theme here in later Sonic games. There are some core ideas that are pretty good, but a lot of these are just weird and make you question why you like Sonic the Hedgehog in the first place. Sonic and the Black Knight, which was a Secret Rings follow-up, where instead of Arabian Nights, he went to the world of King Arthur. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, the sequel that 2 years later decided to put him in the Winter Games, which makes perfect sense. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, which was another racing game featuring Sonic and the Sega All-Stars, obviously, but this was in a go-kart style game, not unlike Mario Kart. The Xbox 360 version actually guest starred Banjo-Kazooie, which is an interesting little wrinkle in gaming history. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 then came out in 2010 for all major consoles. This was okay. It wasn't... I don't think it deserved to have the name Sonic the Hedgehog 4. I don't think it was worthy of that mantle, but it was a decent platformer. Got the job done. I just something about it I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I was not feeling it. Not great at all. Sonic Free Riders, which is another Sonic Riders follow-up for the 360 in 2010. We then had Sonic Colors, a high-speed action-adventure game for the Wii and DS in 2010, where he goes through theme park-inspired worlds to rescue an alien race called the Wisps. This was a neat little game, so much so that they're remastering it later this year. Different. Again, nothing quite reaching that Sonic Adventure 2 level of fantastic Sonic 3D games, but still pretty decent. I liked Sonic Generations a lot. That's next in 2011, the 20th anniversary Sonic title. Put classic Sonic and modern Sonic in one game, let you change between the two of them. Very interesting gameplay, very interesting look, and one that I really, really enjoyed as well. Sonic Generations is awesome, and I highly recommend that anybody who likes Sonic play that. Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games kept that going. We saw Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 finally released in 2012. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which is another go-kart style All-Stars Racing game. Sonic Lost World, which is another platformer starring Sonic and Tails. A weird one, to be sure. And then from there, it's just more Olympic Games. He does another... guest turn on Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. Sonic Boom comes out, where they all have those weird long limbs and wraps, and that was... I hear the show was pretty decent, but the look of them just really turned me off. I didn't really get into that very much. You had another Sonic Boom game in 2016 for the 3DS, Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. Sonic Mania is where the Sonic franchise for me started to turn around. In 2017, they went back to the original 16-bit Sega gameplay, visual style and regular style, and it blew my mind. The way that they were able to modernize that and use some things that they probably didn't have back in the day in this version was so dang cool. I was all about Sonic Mania. Play that if you haven't yet. It's only 4 years old, but man, is it great. Sonic Forces, another game that used 3 different types of gameplay. You had your Sonic Generation style 3D modern Sonic levels, 2D classic Sonic levels, but then there was a tag team mode where you could create your own creature in the Sonic universe and team with Sonic to finish the challenges and win the game. That's a little weird, creating your own Sonic character. People have been doing that on the internet for years. Look how it's turned out for them. But hey, power to them. At least they tried something different. I can get behind that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Sonic Mania Plus added a little more to Sonic Mania, the game I talked about earlier. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, his latest star turn in Super Smash Bros. Team Sonic Racing, another traditional kart racer, just with team-based gameplay this time. And then Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. That's the most recent release. There's a couple other Sonic Olympic games coming out. There's an arcade edition and a Android and iOS version with just Sonic at the Olympic Games. But that's it. That's where Sonic sits right now. There is a new game coming out in 2022. Sonic Colors Remastered is on the way, as I mentioned earlier. He's kind of in this weird, like, everybody still likes him, everybody still respects him, but he can't really find that game for himself. You know what I mean? Hopefully this one in 2022 changes that, and he can go back to being the star that he was. But right now, on his 30th birthday, he seems like he's in a little bit of a transition period, a little bit of a limbo. Certainly not as bad as Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, but certainly not at Sonic 3 and Knuckles or Sonic Adventure 2 levels of delight. But whatever you think about Sonic the Hedgehog, he's 30 years old. He's a classic video game character and one that I don't think will ever go away. So happy birthday, Sonic the Hedgehog. Here's to 30 more. All right, and finally tonight, as I mentioned a couple times throughout the show, next week I am on vacation, going to the beach in 2 different states for 2 different trips, and just getting away from this computer for a while, which will feel quite nice to get out and stretch my feet and relax for a little bit with my family on a beach. Looking forward to that. But sometimes you need some music to play. And while there are, you know, the staples, your island songs or your classic rock on the radio or whatever it is that you listen to on the beach, there are some video game songs that can help you. Some songs from video games that set the island mood and make you feel like you're floating away on a fantastic beach vacation. And I'm here to introduce some of them to you right here and now. A couple of songs that you may remember or you may not. A couple of songs that you may never heard of before, but all of them are worthy of your geeky summer playlist if you're looking for a couple of games to get into there. First is a simple one from Super Mario Galaxy in 2007, and that's the Beach Bowl Galaxy. Just a small little galaxy with penguins and oceans you could swim in and all kinds of other little neat stuff. And the song is awesome. It just little island beat lets you just enjoy some island rhythms. Really, really like this song a lot. And if you haven't heard it before, I highly suggest you take a look at it because it's a nice little island song to get you going for your vacation. It's good to play it, though, right when you first get there. Right when you're really excited, right when you're on the beach. This is not one you play to relax. This is one you play when you first get to the beach and you're trying to get going. As is the next song on my list, Destiny Islands from Kingdom Hearts. The first place you ever go in a Kingdom Hearts game is Destiny Islands. And this is another really upbeat, really fun island-sounding song. It's heavy on the little percussion. It sounds like it's got a little island mystique to it, as does the Destiny Islands itself. It's not the only song in the game that really sounds like this, because the rest of them obviously reflect the Disney worlds and the Final Fantasy stuff that they came from. But to get this little original song right in the beginning, Destiny Islands, really, really cool song, and one that I would love to hear while actually sitting on a beach. In fact, I might do that. But I also might do that with the next song right here from Tekken Tag Tournament 2. That's the Eternal Paradise, also known as Fiji, from the first 2 Tekken games. This one holds a special place in my heart just because it's from those original Tekken games. Tekken always seemed very serious with its, furrowed brow fighting and all this other stuff, but it's always had an inherent level of silliness that I've come to appreciate. It never really takes itself too seriously, and this song and the circumstances surrounding it are a perfect example. So back in Tekken 2, this was the theme song of a boxing kangaroo named Roger, as well as a boxing dinosaur named Alex. Whenever you fought them in the arcade mode, you would get this song, or the Tekken 2 version of this song. And I always loved it. I always thought it was one of the best songs in the game, if not the best song in the game. So putting it on my island playlist just makes a lot of sense. Next up is from a game that many people may not think of when they think of the soundtrack, but it is pretty omnipresent and a soundtrack that is definitely worthy of more recognition. And that's The Sims Vacation. So the Vacation expansion for The Sims obviously brought, beach or pool. You could go on vacations and do all kinds of stuff on these exotic locales on your vacation. But the song that played when you were just playing through the game, the general gameplay song of Sims Vacation, is a really good island beat. A really good song that sets the tone and gets you moving and grooving on your little beach getaway. Definitely one that you may not have thought of originally when you were thinking about what to do for music on your island, on your beach show. But definitely one that I recommend if you seek it out. The actual name of the song is Chimanganalai. Chimanganalai. Wow, that's a weird one. But that's the song you look up. It's Chimonganalai from The Sims Vacation. Next up is from a game, again, you wouldn't really associate with, relaxing beach music, but Metal Gear Solid 3 had an entire line of short, snappy, fun songs you could hear on the radio that were supposed to be of the time of the 60s when that game takes place. And this one, Seabreeze, is one of my favorites. Just, again, a small, nice little jazz, sounds like maybe a quartet or a trio, playing a neat little song that makes you feel like you're just sitting back in a chair and the umbrella's going and the breeze is blowing. You hear the waves crashing. Maybe you have a nice little beverage in your hand. You can envision that listening to this song. Fun fact about this song, actually. Back when I got married in 2012, I was told that I couldn't have any video game music as the DJ lineup. And, that's fair. Not everyone's as big a gamer as I am, so I don't expect them to, just sit there and jam out to video game music all night. And I wouldn't want to do that either. But I conspired with my DJ to sneak one video game song into the lineup. It happened during dinner, so we were all sitting down and enjoying our meal. And it was this song, Seabreeze. It's light, it's fun, it doesn't sound like it's from a video game, and it got the job done. I was able to espionage a video game song into my wedding. Thank you, Seabreeze. So check that one out. Definitely a good example of a island-style, beachy video game song. As is, and this one shocked me too, when I was doing my research for this segment, I couldn't believe that so many people were pointing to Pokemon for games with island songs. Now, it makes sense. There are islands in the game, so getting an island soundtrack makes a lot of sense, but they weren't pointing to any of the islands or any of the beachy scenes from Pokemon. They were pointing to the first cities that you enter in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but specifically in the Kanto region. So Viridian City, Pewter City, and Cerulean City. And when I listened to the track, I thought to myself, you know what? It actually makes perfect sense. It sounds like a really slow, chill walk through, like a boardwalk setting or a farmer's market near a beach or something like that. You're just enjoying yourself, enjoying the day. Nice sun is shining sort of song. It's very upbeat, very uplifting, and I couldn't believe it, but there it was. So Viridian City from Heart Gold and Soul Silver, that is one you need to put on your list as well. Not something, again, I thought I would ever say, but here we are. Another one that doesn't come from an actual, beachy locale in a game, but definitely fits the aesthetic, is a mini game segment from the Professor Layton series. So Professor Layton and the Unwound Future, the third game in the franchise for the popular puzzle-solving franchise on the DS and 3DS. There is a moment where you go into the professor's trunk and there's a little mini car in there, and you're like getting parts to this mini car, I think is what it is, or you're getting clues from it, something like that. But the song that plays while you're interacting with the mini car makes this list. It checks out. You're listening to it right now, and you can hear it. That the flute, the flute is carrying the melody, while there's a little island guitar drum thing going on in the background. It's a neat little song. This is one for when you're sitting on like your deck, on your deck back at your house, overlooking the bay, or just enjoying the nice like sunset sort of time. You're just sitting there with a cold one. Maybe someone's on the grill and you're waiting for it to cook up. That's where I envision this song, and maybe you can see that too while you're on your beach trips, whether it's a weekend or for a full week. Couple more we got going here, a couple more recommendations before we head off for the week. Next one, Final Fantasy VII, because of course there was going to be a Final Fantasy song here somewhere. I thought about the fishing village from the fishing pier from Final Fantasy 15. That's a good song, but I had to go to a classic. Had to go back to Final Fantasy VII. Had to talk about Costa del Sol. This is one of the first instances of a like perfect island sounding song that I had ever heard in a video game, and this is like the third Final Fantasy I'd ever played. I just love this. It's so chill. It's so in a game where so much crazy stuff is happening at any given moment. The fact that it gives you this reprieve in Costa del Sol, and it plays this slow melodic jam and encourages you to take a load off for a little while. I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's definitely one you should put on your beach playlist for gamers. This next one is one of the newer tracks. Actually, the last two are two of the newer tracks on the list here, both from massively popular Nintendo franchises, both of them on the Switch. So in the 2017, both of these songs hit the public. The first one is Lorellan Village from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the little fishing village off in the corner of the map there. I actually did not find this village throughout my entire first playthrough. It was after I had reloaded my save after defeating Ganon, and I went to explore more of the map, and I found this place, and I fell in love with it. Little chill song that you're probably hearing right now, just some steel drum, and some light bass, and some slow, like, bongo, tambourine. Oh, man. I close my eyes, and I feel like I'm at like an all-inclusive on some exotic island, and I'm sitting there, and there's some mood music playing in the background where everyone's enjoying themselves in the pool or in the ocean or at the swim-up bar or whatever. This is what I think of when I think of this song, when I hear this song, even though it's in something completely different in Breath of the Wild. It's just the kind of song that was written by Hajime Wakai when he wrote this one. So I appreciate that. I love the sound of it, and this is what I'm going to use, again, as a relaxation piece when I'm down on the beach just trying to chill and enjoy myself, or even after the beach when I'm coming down, just sitting, taking some time to myself. Definitely an awesome track here. And finally, the last one, my favorite of the top of the 10 that we picked here, my number one from Super Mario Odyssey. That is from I think it's called the Seaside Galaxy, or the beach. That's not the Beach Galaxy. So I think it's Seaside Galaxy. I'll have to check that on you. But this song is called Bubble Lane. And this is just, oh man, if the other two were relaxing, this one could put me to sleep. This is one when I want to take a nap on the beach, and I dig my feet in the sand, and I put a towel over my head. I just relax for a while. Just rock me to sleep with this song. It's so easygoing, so just nothing is wrong. Everything is right in the world. You're sitting on a beach with your favorite people, and the sun is shining, and the waves are crashing, and life is good. Life is good. That's what I feel when I hear this song. That's what I think when I hear this song. It just gets me right in that spot where everything's all right, everything is fine, and you're on a beach on vacation with your buds, with your friends, with your family, with your pals, whoever it is. This also kind of sets a mood at an all-inclusive, like I said earlier, where people are just mingling and chilling and in a calmer setting. I'm not talking about like a raucous swim-up bar or anything like that, but when you're just sitting in a lounging chair on the beach, you got the ocean 10 feet away. Maybe there's a pagoda or like a private little gazebo area that you're in. Just love it. Just love it. Can you tell I'm excited for vacation? Can you tell I'm excited to do this? But so that's some 10 choices for video game beach music that you could experiment with while you're out there enjoying the sun, whatever it is that you're doing it. There are plenty more songs that I didn't include. Check them out for yourself. More from fighting games, more from big time adventures. Whatever your favorite game is, I'm sure there's one that you could check out there. But I hope you enjoyed this little list. Just something fun. Fun to ride off into the sunset with, literally. And I will be back in 2 weeks' time to give you more updates on video games and esports. So, with that, this has been episode 54 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I will be back again in 2 weeks' time with a brand new episode number 55. There will be a next Saturday, the 3rd, on the radio. There will be a best of where I'll play a couple of my favorite clips from the first 54 episodes of this show. Could be some interviews, could be some things where I talk about stuff. Haven't quite decided what I'm putting in there yet. Going to figure it out once this episode is all edited. But I hope you enjoy that. I hope you listen to that. And I will be back again in 2 weeks, like I said, giving you more of the greatest in esports and video games. Episode 54 of Cheesesteaks and Controllers signing off. My name is Jason. Thank you so much for your ears and your attention. Until next time, goodbye.